We have a lot to talk about, but I wanted to start with something that I know you're paying a lot of attention to internally right now and thinking a lot about, which is how digital products that Glossier might create. So not the physical products you're selling to all your beloved customers, but products on your website and digital platform might increase engagement with the company long term. And I know you haven't come out with any yet, but it's something you have a strong point of view on. So maybe you can explain that for us.
Sure. So, in the 4 years that Glossier has existed, we've always been focused on the power of the individual. So, while many beauty companies and indeed consumer companies are focused on the power of influencer and creating influencers, we've always believed in the power of one and the ability for every single person to tell their own story. Beauty is an incredible conduit for connection. It's one of the best icebreakers that exists. Everyone deals with it. We all make decisions every day on what to put on our face and how to show up. And this is a massive industry. This is a $450 billion global market set to be $750 billion in 6 years. So it's growing 7% faster than the developed world's GDP. This is not chump change, and this is not as easy as simply developing digital tools that cross-sell, upsell, and get things to you faster. I've never heard a single woman tell me that the criteria for picking out her new mascara was what would arrive to her quickest. Best mascara is based on...
We're talking about Amazon here, right?
Yeah. I mean, it's an emotional category. This is a category where simply seeing a picture like you might of a fashion product isn't enough. You want a lot more context, and you want to choose whose story you want to believe. So the way that the company has begun in the first 4 years has been by creating the physical tools, the products, through which every woman can write her own story, right? They're a little bit like, crayons in some ways. They're activators, not dissimilar to, what an iPod ends up being for every person, right? You share the same tool, but you use it in totally different ways. And that's how we've always considered our physical product. We've always taken a long-term view that that's not enough for people to actually write their own stories and connect with others. And that actually, in the process of building this company now over the last 4 years, we've realized that the shopping experience is even more broken or lacking, I should say, for beauty products than what we initially believed.
What broken how?
Well, you have e-commerce as a definition, pretty much synonymous with Amazon, since it's 50% of U.S. e-commerce. You have it as this experience that is all about a breadth of stuff, right? It's about a breadth of product. What you don't have is an e-commerce experience that's focused on a depth of connection. And today, you have 72% of millennials saying that they're making their fashion and beauty purchasing decisions on Instagram. And if you extrapolate that, what people are really saying is they're shopping on social media, right? They're buying on e-commerce sites. And so what we've noticed for beauty is that while that works to a certain extent, Google search, which is often the first thing a place you might go when you're looking for that best mascara, you're typing that in, it leaves a lot to be desired from the standpoint of that sort of customer journey of going down this rabbit hole trying to figure out, whose story to believe. Is it Cosmo's review of best mascaras? Is it, the commenter on Makeup Alley? Is it the post on Into the Gloss?
Google's algorithm. Is it Google's algorithm? Yes.
Yeah, and so, to simply treat beauty as something to buy based on convenience or price or stuff, it's not enough.
So what does that look like? And I mean, so you have this point of view, you believe what's out there is not good enough for the shopping experience of beauty today. How do you think about filling those gaps?
So we think about it basically as inverting the entire model. So if you think about, Glossier.com today, Glossier.com today is a means to an end. Most customers who come to Glossier come because they've already converted, somewhere else. They've converted through Instagram, they're already interested in purchasing it. Tomorrow, we see Glossier's digital product being a value proposition in and of itself to discover beauty content and the beauty information that you might be looking for that is user-generated, that is people-generated. So if you think about the role of reviews on Amazon, it's something like 90%, 88% of Americans trust a stranger's comments online as much as they trust a loved one's opinion. This is the world we live in, and what we really see as an opportunity is to invert the existing paradigm of placing product above people and really saying, how do we bring people more to the forefront here? And in many ways, merchandise their stories more than we're thinking about merchandising our stuff. So focusing on engagement rather than focusing on sales.
So is this modern online forum that's really focused? Is this?
You'll have to ask our head of digital product. He just joined from Instagram. He was leading DM and camera there. In some ways we've been doing, not in some ways, in a lot of ways, we've actually been doing this since day one. We've built, we've put 1,000 of our top customers in a Slack channel, and they were exchanging over 10,000 messages a week. We get.
Is that still going on, or is that something that happened in the past?
It's something that's evolving. So we're going to evolve the learnings from that into more of engagement on our own channel. So it's about listening to users and the direct relationship that we can have with every single person and facilitating those relationships with each other. I mean, Glossier gets a DM, let's see, I think it's 5 DMs a minute. And
that's on Instagram?
That's on Instagram. So it's interesting because we've spent 4 years cultivating this direct-to-consumer relationship that's enabled us to build, better physical product, to respond to customers, incredibly fast, and yet we still outsource our engagement to other platforms. So we don't outsource our distribution, but we do outsource our engagement. And when you say, is Slack channel still going on? I mean, Slack can get a little unwieldy. You guys have been on Slack in your companies. It's great when it's, a certain number of users.
Yep.
It can be difficult. So these are platforms that are built for a medium of communication, but not for a specific topic. So if you look at YouTube, beauty is the second biggest category on YouTube. It still can be difficult, again, on that what's the mascara I should get hunt to find that, because it's built for video for everything. It's not built for video for beauty. And what we're really trying to do is own that conversation of beauty online.
So if you succeed in whatever form these new digital products take, you were grabbing time spent from some social platforms and putting them onto either Glossier.com or some other Glossier-owned platform, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. You talked about a new hire who came in to focus on this work. Did you have to reset expectations with the new hire when the new hire came in? Did you have one idea of what this would look like, and now that's totally being reset, or what has happened over the last 6 to 12 months?
It's interesting. So if you really think about where we've come from in our DNA, it's always been about this people storytelling perspective, and the idea that someone's story it's much more important to create tools for people to share their opinion than it is to get the sale. And there have been so many decisions along the way that have been focused on creating those pathways for people that have enabled Glossier to have an 80 NPS, and the average beauty company NPS is between 40 and 50. So this direct connection with the user and the ability to create tools for her has driven, most of our decisions, starting from, back when we had a blog called Into the Gloss. In some ways, that was a very beta version of saying, what happens when you're not focused on, saying what the newest product is, but just focused on saying, what does someone think of this thing? And that's what we did in a really analog way, starting 8 years ago when I created that.
So in an ideal world in the future, your customers are getting advice from each other in sort of both an intimate way, but something that scales and can be used by all
Exactly.
your customers.
I mean, in the end state for us, what we see ourselves is as very much a tech company whose business is beauty products. Right? Our revenue comes from the sale of our beauty products. We create our beauty products in conjunction with our community, which is a global community. And what we're looking to do is basically bring that community home, build an environment for this community to have the best tools at their disposal in order to tell these stories that they're telling to drive right now. 70% of our business is driven through word of mouth, is driven through peer-to-peer.
So it's really interesting. You said a tech company
whose business is beauty.
Okay, so I've spent a lot of time over the last month or so talking to a lot of consumer companies that decided not to raise venture capital and decided, you know what, we're a consumer product company. This is what we do best. We'll hear from a couple of them after we're done today. And so, when I think you guys recently raised over a new round of funding that was over $50 million. I wonder about that. What makes you a tech company, and why do you think the venture capital model and raising a lot of money like that is the right thing for your business?
So it's interesting. Our business is pretty different. Yes, it is D2C, so you can draw comparisons to other, incredible D2C brands, Warby Parker, Away, Casper, Harry's. There are also a lot of differences. I mean, this is an incredibly high margin business. We have 1% returns. We have no seasonality, very little seasonality, and we really haven't even scratched the surface on paid acquisition, right? You have so little yet. And so
what percent, can you say what percent of revenue you spend on paid?
I can't say. No, but 70.
Should I guess?
Sure. I mean, 70+% of our
Okay.
growth has come through, owned, earned, or peer-to-peer.
Okay.
So it's really a word of mouth industry. And so raising, it's actually not as capital intensive as, if you're looking at a super high inventory business like Jet, right, or something like that. Where we choose to invest, and it's funny because a lot of people thought, oh, okay, they're raising, this seed round, and if you look at D2C companies and kind of the trajectory of, some of the aforementioned brands, they raise this money to open a lot of retail. We have 2 stores. We have, a flagship in LA, we have a flagship in New York, and we don't have any plans to open any more. We don't see retail.
Like this year or period?
I mean, I'm sure we'll open some at some point, but this money was not raised to use owned retail as a growth lever. Our growth lever is doubling down on platform, doubling down on Glossier.com, and continuing to in doing so, enable our customers to continue to be advocates for the brand in a more centralized place. So, hopefully we won't have to raise for, OpEx again. It's really about a massive investment in technology. It's why we acquired a company in Montreal last year who's made up mostly of engineers. The current makeup of our company is around 180 people, and we're about a third technology. Our engineering team is 50% female. So our investment in technology has been this way. Actually, it's not a pivot. It's really always been this way since day one.
And so, just the most recent round, a lot of money, $50 million.
Yeah.
You're saying a lot of that is engineering hired and technology related?
It's funny. It's funny because people always say, what are you using the money for? I'm not sure what other entrepreneurs say, but it's sort of, for us, it's like more of the same. I mean, it's growing our business. It's scaling a company that has, triple-digit growth every year.
You mentioned 2 retail locations, not current plans for more than that. When you think about those 2 locations, what are they to the business? If they're not, critical, mainly sales channels for you, what are they?
So, funny story. The woman at Glossier who actually opened the first Glossier showroom was telling us yesterday at All Hands that she was on a plane on the way back to New York from London, and she was wearing a sweatshirt that said Glossier. We sell these sweatshirts. We've sold out several times. And the flight attendant asked her, oh my God, do you like Glossier? She said, yeah. She said, it's my first stop as soon as I get off this plane in New York. I live in London, and in New York City, the first place I want to go is to Glossier. And this is what we hear from 50% of people who go and wait in line, rain or shine, at a 6th floor walk-up showroom in Soho, or an 1,100 square foot shop on Melrose Place, is because it's this pilgrimage in many ways. It's like the height of engagement for a customer. And we have last year, 100,000 pieces of tagged content on Glossier, a lot, tagging Glossier, a lot of which was taken in these experiences. And these, this got over 500 million impressions, this content. So in many ways, a visit to our showroom, which is, it's 50% out of state and international, it's really like a landmark for fans and followers of the brand to go experience what it means to be sort of, a part of this ecosystem that we're building.
And so the upside of that, the power of that, compared to sort of the sales that would come from more brick and mortar stores around the country. You obviously, like, how do you measure how those stack up against each other?
It feels like the right thing to do to really invest in a couple of, really, if you go into, I'm not sure if you've been to the one in LA, but these are kind of like Disneyland-like experiences. These are not designed to optimize for sales per square foot. This is designed for engagement. It would be very hard, I think, to recreate, that kind of format in hundreds of stores. They would have to be much more standardized. So for us at this moment, the right decision for our customer is to keep these as really, sort of destinations, and centralize the engagement and the conversations for people online. But what's interesting, even in saying that, is that everything that we're building digitally is actually just mimicking the offline experience that we've created in our store, which is completely different from the experience you'd get at a multi-brand store for beauty like Sephora, where 50% of people who go in are not speaking to anyone who works there and are just taking out their iPhones and are looking up reviews and Googling reviews of products online, seeking that connection by choosing who they want to engage with. And so what happens at a Glossier, store, if you go, is people stay in there for hours. They are talking to each other.
Please, time to leave.
Our editors who work there, none of whom actually have worked in beauty, are really there to be connectors and facilitators of conversations between, the people who are visiting. So, another story, someone came out. I was recently speaking to an editor who said, yeah, there was a woman here yesterday, we called her name because everything's through an iPad system, and they called her name and no one showed up, and then they were closing like 45 minutes later, and they just tried to call it again. She was like, oh, that's me, yeah, I was just hanging out. So this is what goes on there, and the connections that are formed inside of these experiences between people who are saying, what color is that you're, I love that, that looks really good, should I try this on? Oh yeah, okay.
It's the first time I've worn it. So,
yeah, but this is what happens, and that's the power of beauty to really connect people, and what we're just trying to scale that digitally.
So I've been fascinated with brands over time that have managed to do what seems almost impossible, which is be a mainstream mass brand. To some people feel exclusive, to some people feel super accessible, but at the same time to not dilute the brand to anyone. And so when you think of brands like that, I think of brands like Nike, you think of brands like Apple. From past conversations, it sounds like, I don't know if I'd describe that exactly how you think about it, but something, a pursuit that you think is worthy for the Glossier brand. And so I'm wondering how you think about that, the dynamic of getting your products into the hands of as many people as possible while also having the brand feel special to everyone?
It's a great question, and I'm happy you care. Our customers care. Our main value and the mission from the beginning has been to give voice through beauty. So use beauty as this tool, as this activator to have people communicate with each other and sit up a little straighter and express and vocalize their opinion. It is a tool, beauty is a tool that can and should be used by everyone. And what we're seeing with our products that we absolutely love is how many of our products are being passed up from daughter to mother How many of our products are being bought by a dad on a trip and tweeting at his daughter that he's there, and then having that, come back by, a 13-year-old in rural England sharing the same Balm.com with a 54-year-old venture capitalist in San Francisco. This is what's so incredible about Glossier, is that it is this foundational layer of every single person's everyday routine, everyday beauty routine.
So as you try to grow the brand, what are the risks you think, or the obstacles you think you have to avoid to make sure that like the specialness remains? Because I don't know if there are simple answers to that, but
we don't control our brand. That's what's really interesting, is what we say about a Glossier product actually doesn't matter. All that matters is what content our users are creating, and we celebrate all of it. And that's what we've done since day one. So, in terms of kind of the risk associated, I think the biggest risks that we face are making amazing product for people. Period. That essentially is where everything begins. It comes from, can you build a product that is going to stand the test of time? Can we make a moisturizer today that's going to remain unchanged in formula, in quality, in ingredients, and in all of it for 80 years? You look at a product like Clinique Dramatically Different Moisturizer. Last I checked, this product was invented in 1962. It makes $300 million annually around the world, and it's been updated once. I can't think of another product category where that is true. Your iPhone gets created every year. Your automobiles are constantly updated. Fashion is, for a month. How many people can actually own the same thing and have that see them through their entire lives, through graduation, through marriage, through divorce, through job change, through skin changes? So for us, I think everything stems from, how do you continue to create the most groundbreaking, long-lasting, category-defining product.
We're going to get questions in a couple minutes if anyone wants to get up to the mic. Do you have any products today that you think are the answer to that should be able to be popular and used 10 years from now?
I can speak to what our users say. If you look at, our Milky Jelly Cleanser, this is a product that is a skincare item that is essentially replacing, some of the most popular cleansers in the market. We sell a Boy Brow Every Minute last year, which is a brow product. And both of these products were made in conjunction with our community, enabled by the direct relationship that we have. So our cleanser was, started by a spark of a conversation through one of our channels saying, "What's your dream face wash?" And we had over 1,000 answers, 1,000 comments.
How do you answer that question? You compare it to other ones, or?
Some of our users said, I really wish this cleanser and this cleanser had a baby. I wish, this cleanser did not have this ingredient. What I'm really looking for is, this ultimate end result. So many different, answers. And again, this speaks to the emotionality. You can't sort of data your way to, the perfect product. It's really about, how do you create, for us, the biggest challenge is creating scalable ways of measuring sentiment. And that comes back to this, emotional commerce paradigm that we're so interested in developing.
In another recent interview at an event, whose name I won't repeat, you were asked about Amazon a lot, and it sounded like the short answer was, you probably won't find this there. Is that a fair?
Yes.
Okay. If I hear a lot of companies talk about when they do sell on Amazon, the answer is something like, we need to be where all our customers are, and we have customers there. Do you see that side of the equation, or?
I certainly do, because you can't ignore what people say. So if our customers, or if we hear people saying, this is a subpar experience for me, I'm already on this platform, I wish I could buy your product, we really have to measure what the trade-offs are, because ultimately there are user trade-offs for the same user who says they want it. One of the trade-offs are, okay, but we won't be able to send you quizzes on the next product that we are interested in creating, or we won't be able to offer you a discount or a pre look at a product that's coming in 3 weeks from now. So in some ways we have to serve the customer, but also protect the sort of, like give the customer, we have to know what's coming down the pipe and what she's going to be missing if she has that experience.
Got it. So that's still a pretty firm no on that channel.
Yes.
Where else, are you selling anywhere else in retail now?
We're 100% owned Glossier.com and 2 of our stores.
And sustainability of that model over the next couple of years?
Well, yeah, I mean, that's why we're investing so heavily in Glossier.com as our growth lever. So if you have, if you look at our growth to date, it's all peer-to-peer. Basically, it's how do we continue to fan those flames? And that's why we're doubling down on this emotional commerce experience.
You have some venture capitalists on your board, right? Because you've raised a lot of money. I'm curious whether there's ever any polite debate or otherwise over retail, like how aggressive to be either through wholesale or retail.
I mean, our growth right now does not necessitate that. Our growth right now, as I mentioned earlier, we haven't even scratched the surface of, classic traditional e-com 1.0, just, acquisition marketing. We've like barely begun. So there's so much runway ahead of us in terms of growth that there's, I think that coupled with the fact that everyone has gone into this with a long-term focus of really owning the conversation for beauty online, where we just keep executing.
Good. If we have any questions, mics are right there. I'll keep going. I know there's got to be a question. Are you coming up? Great. Just tell us who you are, please.
Hi, my name is Corinne Ruff. I'm a reporter with Retail Dive. I think it's really interesting what you're talking about, creating a platform to put beauty enthusiasts in the same room, digital room, to talk about what they like. But at least for myself, I mean, there's no one brand that I use for all of my products, which leads me to believe that, a lot of people might be saying, oh, well, this cleanser that isn't Glossier, I'd really, really love it. So I wonder if you're thinking about opportunity to start a marketplace or partner with brands.
Yeah, our fundamental first principle is to build incredible user product, whether that's digital product, this platform, whether it's physical product. And there is zero question that no one is using 100% of our brand or probably any other beauty brand. And in fact, that is exactly why we exist, is to facilitate a super bespoke, curated expertise to enable everyone to become their own expert. So, as we've always done, we will listen to what our users want, but certainly any platform that we create and any tools that we create are going to continue to enable the user to talk about, everything that goes into their beauty routine.
But no plans for a marketplace?
No plans currently.
Okay, thanks.
Yep.
Good reporter question. Yeah. I like that. I'll go with a couple more. This is pretty straightforward, but one I get a lot from colleagues and family members who are customers, which is, at your price points, which are pretty accessible, like how are you, what are the 1 or 2 keys to the quality to price point ratio that you guys have been able to achieve so far?
You mean how are we able to keep the prices accessible?
Yeah.
I mean, direct obviously helps a lot. We're not designing for, retail margins.
Yep. So you're not factoring wholesale prices or anything like that.
Exactly. Yeah. So I would say that's fundamentally extremely helpful. I would say that's the main thing. And also just with beauty, there's a long history, and we don't have nearly enough time to go into this, of conglomerates, of traditional beauty conglomerates, relying on scare tactic marketing, like, hey, what's that? That's bad. And you're like, what is it? I didn't know. I thought I looked great. And they're like, here's this thing, or relying on kind of this artificial sense of, higher price equals higher quality, right? If I can sell you a $120 jar of La Mer and you can scrape the money together, it's going to be better than Glossier's, $22 moisturizer. And what I learned, in my years as an editor of beauty is like, that's just not true. Like, it's really, really not true. So I think through a combination of like tactical, margin-based, because we don't have retail decisions, coupled with just industry knowledge, like, and education, being able to be a conduit for our users and say, actually, our moisturizer is way better than this much more expensive moisturizer for XYZ reason. I would say it's a combination of those two things: education to the customer about what they're actually getting and what they're actually paying for, and just, you know, smart decisions about distribution.
Last question. I know just from talking to people in the industry, there's obviously among other bigger companies, a ton of interest in your brand. How do you look at what would have to feel right to make an acquisition something that Glossier would pursue?
I mean, traditionally, you know, beauty companies would buy, you know, smaller brands because they could help distribute them. Distribution, all of the channels that a lot of these brands have been, you know, selling to are really on the decline. You look at department stores, beauty aisles in, you know, drugstores, even Amazon just dropped off. There was just this love list study that came out saying, you know, millennials do not say Amazon is in the top 10 for fashion shopping. So distribution would have used to be, you know, a huge advantage for a brand like us, but we see ourselves as really building the channel of the future.
So, okay, so you think there's not a ceiling, whereas you might say yes to an acquisition because it would allow you to get distribution you couldn't get today. You're saying
That's not an issue.
You don't envision a ceiling. We see a lot of consumer brands that get to 100 million or 200 million online, and they have to go wide into retail.
We do not see that, especially for beauty, and for us as an issue.
All right, I think we'll stop there.
All right.
Thank you so much,
Thanks,
Emily.
Jason.